from Central Ohio's news leader. Presented in high definition, this is 10 TV News HD.
A Washington State woman is filing a $25 million lawsuit after a hard hit by a sheriff's deputy left her husband in a coma. It was all caught on surveillance tape, and as you're about to see, it's not easy to watch. This is the video caught on surveillance of what happened back in May. 29-year-old Christopher Harris is slammed into a wall by a Seattle sheriff's deputy who mistakenly thought Harris was involved in a crime. Harris suffered permanent brain damage and has been in a coma ever since. Sarah Jorgensen said on the CBS Early Show she doesn't know why her husband was running from police.
There's no way of knowing. I mean, no one can get into his head and know what he was thinking that night. The only thing that his family and I can assume is that he didn't know who was chasing him.
A review by the King County Sheriff's Office found that the deputy did nothing illegal and that no criminal charges would be filed, something the Harris family attorney finds hard to believe.
Whether or not they decided to file a criminal charge, what they did to Christopher was absolutely unnecessary. You can look at the video, and that video speaks for itself.
But the sheriff's office calls this a standard takedown procedure.
And that's not a push. If you see that, that's not a push. That's a hit like an NFL linebacker.
And it's a hit, doctors say, from which Christopher Harris may never recover. The $25 million his family is seeking would help pay for a lifetime of care.
All the doctors that we have spoken to, neurologists, have all told us that the injuries to his brain are going to be permanent brain damage, and that he will live that way and have to be taken care of 24 hours a day for the rest of his life.
And we are joined now by a former police chief. Dr. Richard Weinblatt is the director of the Institute for Public Safety at the Central Ohio Technical College. Thanks for being here. Let's take another look at that video as we talk about it. You know, it's a pretty hard hit, I think anybody would agree.
Yes, that's true, Kurt.
And the sheriff's office there says this was sort of standard procedure. Does it look like standard procedure to you?
Well, it's standard procedure depending on what the officers, or in this case the deputy sheriffs, knew at the time that they were doing this. Remember, according to the news reports, this person was identified as being involved in an altercation.
Right.
What type of altercation, or a bloody brawl as it was described, we don't know. I don't know, and you don't know, obviously, if there was a firearm involved. If there's a firearm involved, obviously deputy sheriffs want to go home at the end of the shift, just like you want to go home at the end of this broadcast. But, you know, the question is were they identified? Were they in uniform or displaying some other official badge of office? And was he really surrendering? And of course the question is, and even his mother said, we don't know why he was running.
He was running, which brings up the question, you know, obviously he should never run from an officer of the law, but what should he have done at that moment when somebody like an officer is chasing him?
Well, what the viewers could do if they were in a situation like that, and sometimes innocent mistakes happen in terms of witness identification, which is what happened here, but they should immediately lie down, prone out, don't resist the officer at all, because they are operating under information. While it may be erroneous, they believe it to be true at the time. And that's the way the courts are going to look at this. They're going to look at not what we know now, but the courts are going to look at what did the deputy sheriffs know at the time, and that's something that isn't really clear yet.
Well, and obviously if this guy had just pulled a gun or fired a shot or robbed a jewelry store, everybody would be hailing this officer as, hey, a hero for the way he took this guy down. What makes it so sad is this guy appears to have been completely innocent.
Appears to have been innocent, but in the viewpoint of the deputies there, his actions may have led credence to a false witness identification that we know in hindsight, but they did not know at the time. And that's really the key, is what did they know at the time?
Do you see any reason for any criminal charges to be filed against the deputy in this case?
Not that we can see so far. I think what would really be telling is an administrative review. Because obviously they're going to look and see if policies and procedures of the sheriff's office were violated in any way. Did the deputy sheriff identify himself properly? You know, that is the kind of things that they have to look at. And of course, there's a civil lawsuit going on, which is part of our nature of our society, but it is a legitimate way for people to get answers. And it may be that the deputies were doing fine, or it may not be. But so it'll be interesting to watch this and see what happens.
And we will continue to. And Dr. Richard Weinblatt, thank you for being with us. The Central Ohio Technical College, we appreciate your perspective.
Thank you.
Everybody talking about it. Well, regarding this case, we asked on Twitter today, was this a case of excessive force or just standard procedure? And here's how some of you responded. Token Liberal tweets, that video is sickening. I get that cops get amped up in a chase, but to throw a guy against a wall like that, too much. Glendor 2 says for what cops have to deal with on a daily basis, the cop could have been overly pumped when he tossed him. And Kristen Hayes says, maybe standard procedure, but they've destroyed the life of an innocent young man and his family. I think the lawsuit is justified.